Nancy, did your daughter get a car?
Yep.
Got the Subaru
Yeah.
or the Lamborghini?
No, well, we did look at the Jaguar as per Carl's recommendation, but no, she opted for the Crosstrek.
That would have been a great choice. You'd be broke for the rest of your life, but it'd be a great choice.
Yeah. Okay, it's 9:30, so I'm gonna get going. Good morning. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted via WebEx, an online digital platform, and will be live streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Nancy Oman and I will be chairing this hearing. Panel members participating via WebEx and who can be seen and heard are Carl Nifel, Peter Reed, and Larry Clay. City staff will be assisting us throughout the meeting, including moderating the WebEx platform. Agents, applicants, and other interested parties participating in this virtual hearing registered in advance and will be connecting through WebEx using a compatible electronic device. Their participation will be through audio only. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone who wants to receive a copy of the committee's decision for an application must submit a written request by email to the general email address for the Committee of Adjustment, Toronto and East York District Office. Please include your name, address, and an email address. All Committee of Adjustment and TLAB notifications and appeal updates will be sent by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal known as OLT. Appeal instructions will be set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. Participants who have registered in advance will be connected to this virtual hearing and will be muted automatically upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly state your name and address. Please confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. Where required, the applicant or agent will proceed first with a presentation of the application. Then, individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have completed their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will be unmuted and will have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. Please note, the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the minutes of the last Committee of Adjustment public hearing been confirmed by the members?
We have 2 sets of minutes to confirm from the July 7th public hearing, as well as the June 2nd panel 2 which was hosted in Scarborough.
Okay, do you want to do them separately or at the same time with one motion?
They
then?
can be done at the same time.
Okay, so panel members, I need a motion to confirm those minutes for July 7th and July 2nd. Who'd like to move the?
June 2nd.
I'm sorry, yes, sorry, June 2nd. Okay, moved by Mr. Nipfel and seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay, the minutes have been confirmed. Panel
Thank you.
members and staff, are there any declarations of interest this morning? Seeing none? Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are you aware of any requests to close or withdraw any applications?
None today.
Okay. Thank you. I know there was one being asked to defer. I can't remember. Is that in the afternoon? Do you remember offhand? Let me check my notes.
I am going to check.
Let me see here. I wrote it down. Oh, it's item 17. 11.
Yeah, we can do that now. It's 1143 O'Connor Drive.
Okay, let me make sure there's no speakers listed. Okay, do you have that agent on the line for item, yeah, George Kentris? Mr. Kentris?
Yes, good morning.
Okay, so for the public, we're just going to item number 17, 1143 O'Connor Drive. I understand that there's a family emergency and that's the reason for the request of deferral by the owners, is that correct?
Yes, and some modifications also on the file that we wanted to look into.
Okay, so panel members, so is there anything that you want to add to that? Because otherwise we'll go straight into committee and vote on the deferral request.
Just to advise the applicant that at the moment we're scheduling probably for November, so that's the earliest they will be rescheduled for this application.
Okay, with that?
That's fine.
That's okay? All right. Panel members, so to the deferral, I think you all saw the request probably in our materials. So I'll need a motion to defer.
Happy to move that motion, Chair. I'll move to defer the item.
Okay. And
Second the motion.
Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, should we do that to a maximum of 3 months then, or what do you want? How do you want?
Just to the next available hearing
Next
date.
available hearing? Okay.
Because it's whenever we have the space for it.
Okay. Okay, so it's moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by, I'm sorry, I didn't see whose hand went up to second it, if anybody, okay. Seconded by Mr. Nipfel. So all in favor for the deferral? Okay, so your deferral has been granted unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. The first item is item number 2032 Gerard Street East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plan, and elevations, a covering letter from Robin Stebner, the agent, a parking study prepared by John Nunn, a consultant. We have email correspondence from transportation, and they don't have any concerns, and also from traffic planning, from transportation, they also have no concerns, and correspondence that's expressed interest from 1968 Gerard Street East. And based on what I read, their concerns were regarding a fence encroachment, parking, traffic concerns, a previous daycare that was in existence in 1968 causing problems, as well as parking. There's no parking and stopping on the street between 7 and 9 a.m. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Michael Testaguza on the line, and I just want to note that the speaker in opposition, Amir Gandour, is not here. He joined but left.
He joined and left. Did you want to give him a shot or? Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Testaguza, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me?
I can. So are you speaking then on behalf of Robin Stebner? If I'm not sure we need a presentation, I'll go to the members in a second, but so are you representing then?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm representing the applicant. Robin and myself work for the same office.
Okay. Panel members, do you need a presentation on this one, or do you have any questions? And the person from 1968 who was wanting to speak, we've contacted them and they're no longer on the line, so we can.
Madam Chairman, I don't need a presentation, but I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Niffel.
I read the parking study that was submitted, and I still have concerns. I have daycares like this near where I live, and there is a parking and a drop-off problem at each and every one of them every morning. Where there isn't any accommodation for the drop-off or parking, there are difficulties on the street. I'm interested to know what is unique here. The fact that your clientele are local, local is a very broad term. It still seems to me that it's unlikely that parents rushing to work are going to be walking their children to the facility. I would think a lot of them are going to drive. So I'm concerned with how you're going to accommodate safe drop-off and how you're going to accommodate the parking of your staff.
Certainly. So I can start off answering that, but I would also like to ask the committee. We did bring John Nan from NextTrans Engineering, who wrote the parking justification letter. He's also registered to answer such questions as this. I'm not sure if he's available at the moment.
I don't see him in the hearing room. I can give him a call really quickly, though.
For my purposes, I don't need his technical expertise so much as I need to know how you, on a day-to-day basis, how you think it's going to work. Because I read all of his technical stuff, but I still have personal experience that tends to have me question whether this is going to work.
Understood. Okay, well, I can start, and if John has anything to add, and if we can get him on the line, that'd be good. But there's a couple of things here. So I think the first thing to note is that per the Transportation Tomorrow survey, 50% of people in this catchment area are expected to walk, use transit, or cycle when dropping off children to the facility. So that's actually based on that specific childcare use. So it's not just the generic numbers, but based on that type of a use. So I can speak to, I guess, my understanding of that study saying 50% of people won't take their car, 50% of people are likely to. In speaking with the neighbor, and I did speak with the neighbor 4 times over the last couple of weeks, there was a previous daycare on the site, and he noted that they had 3 parking spots on site, so the required amount. And what that did was that actually created an issue because people would drive to the site expecting to find the 3 parking spots there. They may potentially have been in use. And what would happen is they'd either back up on Gerard or they'd actually park on his property. And that was one of his major concerns. So in my conversation with him yesterday, which ended quite well, and he advised me he didn't have any further concerns based on that, we advised that we would make future patrons of this facility aware that there was no parking on site and that there were restrictions on Gerard Street in the area at certain times, provide an infographic so that we could explain to them where they are and are not permitted to park in the area, so that they understood, don't get tickets, but also don't create issues in the area. And he was satisfied with that. We also discussed, of course, ongoing need to inform people if any issues do arise in that scenario. So in this way, there were 3 spots, there was a daycare, and frankly, that wasn't working. This is a very walkable part of the city, as you know. And so as a result, and again, as the transportation study's shown, there's ample opportunity for on-street parking in the area. We actually think that's a better solution. The way the current parking on the site works, people would have to drive in and then back out into Gerard on rush hour traffic. And there was instances of people queuing on Gerard actually to get in. So, compared to the as of right scenario, we believe the variance is actually much more beneficial and keeps cars off the site away from the children where they're playing, which is a side benefit as well. So that's my submission to you in that regard. The other thing I'd note is this variance has two parts. The first part is allowing for the entirety of the building to be used, so no expansion proposed, but allowing the entirety of the building to be used for commercial uses, generally speaking. And then the second is the specific variance to parking only for a day nursery, because that's the current tenant that we've been getting interest from. But there's no guarantee down into the future that this wouldn't be another use, which would be subject to the generic parking requirements of the bylaw.
Can I just follow up, because the parking, or the restrictions, as I see them, it's no stopping between 7 and 9 a.m. all along that side, and then between 4 and 6, it's no parking. So are you suggesting then that they're gonna park on the other side of the street, or would, because I'm assuming the daycare has to be open around 8 o'clock for parents going to work to bring their kids there. So they can't stop,
Actually,
they can't stop on that side in the morning.
Yeah, if you'll open up, it was submitted to the committee, the parking justification letter. There's
Yeah.
actually a figure in that letter that's quite helpful in showing where the restrictions are. Believe it is on page 5.
But the parking study is based on assumptions, right? On numbers.
I'm sorry.
So the parking studies are generally based on assumptions of, you know, how many people and the assumption that a lot of people are not gonna be from the area and whatnot. So I guess I'm just asking
Yeah,
you,
well,
so are you expected, based on what the parking study says, that they can't stop on that side between 7 and 9, that they're gonna stop on the other side of the street and then cross with their kids?
Correct. Yeah, there's actually crosswalks at Gulfview, which is 100 meters east of the site, and at Woodbine, which is 90 meters west of the site. So there's actually 2 designated crosswalk areas in very close proximity to the site. And this image exactly shows that it's as you would typically expect. In the morning, there's parking restrictions on the way into the city, and in the afternoon, there's parking restrictions on the way out of the downtown core. And so at any time of the day, there's parking available on one or other side of Gerard. And the transportation consultant also did look at the next page at parking restrictions on local streets in the area as well.
Okay.
And basically what that infographic shows is that at all times, there's parking permitted on each of the surrounding streets. Green being both sides at all times, and the other colors identifying the typical, switching back and forth over the summer months and restrictions over the winter months to one side of the street.
Mr. Clay?
Chair, just a quick question. I noticed the 2 variances for us, I think are related to the conversion to a commercial building. I just wondered if I could ask the agent, are those 2 variances specific to a daycare, or specific to a commercial use, which in this instance appears to be a daycare?
Okay, yeah, no, completely understandable. So the zoning is CR 2.0. So that allows 2.0 residential and 0.5 commercial. The building is approximately 0.997 FSI. So the variance is to allow the entirety of the building as it exists today to operate for commercial uses. It's actually been vacant for the last year while we've been waiting for this committee of adjustment. It's very difficult to find tenants because only 50% of the building currently as it stands is permitted to be commercial in nature. So that's the first part of the variance. And the variance is to allow 1.0 FSI commercial. So we've spoken with planning about that. They're completely understanding of it. They don't want to see this application come forward to the committee over and over again ad nauseum for one specific use. They believed it was appropriate to allow the change to 1.0 FSI for commercial. It doesn't change the overall density permissions on the site, which remain at 2.0. It's just allowing for a greater percentage of that to be commercial, which is obviously consistent with the official plan policies for mixed-use areas. And then second part is to amend the parking ratio specifically and only as it relates to a daycare use, because that's where we've been getting the most interest. And obviously there's specific requirements for outdoor play area for daycares that would make that front portion of the site the ideal place to provide that.
Okay, that's helpful. So the park is specific to the daycare.
Correct, yeah, sorry, long-winded answer.
Okay, any other questions? Panel members? Okay, seeing none, so we're going to take it into committee, sir. Mr. Testaguzza, anything to add before we go into committee that wasn't covered?
No, nothing other than to say again, we've spoken to the neighbor. To my understanding, he's satisfied and his concerns are no longer pertinent, and planning and transportation staff had no issues.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel members, we'll take, Mr. Niffel, did you have a question or?
No, it's not a question. I
Okay,
was going to bring a
so,
motion.
discussion then, go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I think that the answers about parking and drop-off were very helpful. I don't think this is an ideal application, but I do think that the use is a critical use for the economic recovery of the city. I support the use. I think that there is perhaps not an ideal solution for parking and drop-off in this particular location. I had not thought of the difficulties of backing out of an on-site parking lot, and I thank the applicant for discussing that. That made a lot of sense to me. I think subject to the, and I'm not suggesting this be a condition, but I think that if the owner is to prepare a factual information sheet for everybody using the facility, advising where there is not parking and the restrictions, that would go a long way towards making this particular project work effectively. Having said that, Madam Chairman, I'd like to bring forward a motion of approval without condition.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Reed, all in favor? Okay, your application has been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 2, 96 Runnymede Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. I have no speakers listed, and we have no further correspondence. Is the agent on the line?
Yes, thank you.
Can you just identify yourself for the record, sir?
Yes, I'm Joseph Mazzatelli. I'm the architect.
Thank you. Panel members, I don't think we need a presentation on this, but do you have any questions for the agent? Seeing none? Mr. Nipfel, are you okay? You have no questions?
No, I have a condition I'd like to propose when we have a motion.
Okay. Mr. Mazzatelli, committee has read all the materials. We're ready to go into committee. Is there anything you want to add before we do so?
Just simply that it's in my opinion that all the variances are minor. I've submitted 3 similar approved C of A decisions with higher densities, and the current owners love the neighborhood. They need a 3rd bedroom for their family, and they hope that you approve this.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Niffel.
Madam Chairman, unless my colleagues have any questions, I'd like to move approval of the application, but I'd like to make it conditional upon development proceeding substantially in accordance with the drawings that are on file. The reason for that condition being to ensure that the addition is actually placed as proposed on the drawings before us.
Okay, so that motion is moved with that condition by Mr. Nipfel. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed beat you, Mr. Clay, by like a second. Alrighty, so
He's younger than I am.
all right, so the motion to approve with the condition of building in accordance with the drawings submitted, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application's been unanimously approved. Thank you. The next item, item number 3, 48 Lanark Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a report from engineering asking for conditions, and correspondence in support from number 27A as well as number 34. And do I have the agent on the line?
Morning, Madam Chair.
Hi. I know your name, but can you just identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Jonathan Benskowski, 301 Keewatin Avenue.
Thank you. Panel members, do you need a presentation? No? Do you have any questions for Mr. Benkowski? Mr. Nipfel, did you have a question, or? I can't hear you, sir. I think you're on mute.
There.
Yep.
Sorry. I have a little bit of concern with the height. The 3 stories is higher than what's around, but I do note that the designer of the building has taken some care to try and mitigate that by working with the forms on the roof and so forth. I'm wondering, would you have any difficulty if this is approved, if we tied the approval to building substantially in accordance with the drawings?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we're ready to go into committee, Mr. Benkowski. Is there anything you want to add before we do so?
I think I'm good.
You're good? Alrighty. Okay, panel members, we're in committee.
Happy to move motion on this one. I was actually, I don't believe there was a height there for the laneway suite, which I always appreciate when we see those kinds of applications where they're consistent with what the city's trying to achieve with laneway suite. So I'm happy to motion to approve. I'll take Carl's point about tying the building to plans, and I think there are no other conditions.
No. Oh, the engineering conditions on the
Engineering.
the March
The
23rd
standard,
report.
sorry,
Yeah.
standard engineering conditions. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Mr. Reed? Okay, motion to approve, including the engineering conditions in the March 23rd report, as well as a condition to build in accordance with the drawings submitted. Moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 4, 827 Gerard Street East. We have
Madam Chair, do you want to do the next two together?
The 4 and 5. I was actually going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Great suggestion. So we're going to do 827 and 829 Gerard Street East together. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Forestry is asking on item number 4, they're asking for conditions 1 and 2. On item number 5, they're asking for condition number 1. And we have correspondence from transportation on item number 5, and they have no concerns. We have 3 form letters in support from 829 Gerard and 228 and 230. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Madam Chair? Yes, Madam Chair, it's Matthew Chong on the line, 132 Ashdale Avenue.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation on this? No?
No.
Do you have any questions for the agent? Mr. Niffel?
Could you refer to just hold on and I'll find it. I think it's the 3rd floor plan of the first, 827 Gerard, the first one. There's a deck on the 3rd floor. And what I'm not clear on, because the floor plan isn't doesn't show the adjacent properties, is there the possibility of looking to the properties on either side from that deck? Do you need to provide, I notice you have a railing, do you need to provide screening for the privacy of the properties on either side?
Yeah, great question. That is actually not a deck. It's just going to be a roof with skylights onto it. The property adjacent to it on 825 is actually a 3-story in parts. And then
And
over
does-
there's a garage, and that's on the west side.
And that extends past where the roof is?
And that extends right to where we have the skylights. If you and so
Okay, yep.
we went through this with Ryan Santiago from planning and provided a massing model to his satisfaction. That's why there's no report from planning on this. We did a 3D massing model that showed him the proximity of this second floor roof overlooking what is existing as a garage. And then on the east side, it's the neighbor at 827 who has no opposition to the overlook here. That roof will not become a deck, and therefore that's why it's not part of the variances here. It will be a operable door window system only for the maintenance on the roof and for cleaning of the skylights. We did propose a rooftop deck, and we can put it as a condition that that does not become a roof that becomes occupiable.
Okay, and that is on the 3rd floor, is that correct? Because there's basically 2 roofs that are exposed. One is on the 2nd floor, and it looks as though there is access to that, but it didn't look as though it was ever intended to be a deck. But then on the 3rd floor where the skylights are, I was reading that to be a deck. You're saying neither one of them are a deck?
No, so that where the skylights are, that's a roof over top of the 2nd floor. The 3rd floor stops at the where you see that zigzag with a door leading out to it, and that is where that simply is a man door for the purposes of maintenance up on that roof, clearing the leaves and maintaining the skylights. The access.
So so that where it says roof on the, if you go to where the skylights are, and then immediately to the left, there's a rectilinear area that says roof. I was reading that as a deck. That's not correct. Is that?
That's just a roof.
Okay.
And then to the left of that is the roof of the garage.
Yes. Okay, I don't see an advantage to a condition that says that you can't have a deck on the roof, because I think probably a deck on the roof might make sense. I'd just be concerned that if you had a deck, you needed to provide sufficient screening.
And if that is the case, further on down the line, sufficient screening will be provided. We are providing a railing for the purposes of safety, so that when they are maintaining that roof, nobody's falling over.
Yep.
And there is no advantage to us at the present moment in time to make that a deck. That's not what's being asked.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr.
Chair,
Clay.
I wonder if I could just ask for a couple confirmations. Whenever we see 0% landscaping front or rear, always gets our attention. I'm going to assume, and maybe the agent can confirm, that's an existing condition.
So it's not an existing condition. What I had spoken to with Ryan Santiago, and it was quite evident when we did the massing. The height of the building at 825 is 3 stories in parts, and then there is the extended garage, which also doesn't afford a ton of sunlight coming into the backyard of either 829 or 827. With the garage that is going to be on the south side of this property, because the laneway is on the south side, if you look at the sunlight that will be coming in to where the possibility of landscaping would be, Ryan Santiago was satisfied that the soft landscaping would probably end up dying due to this small backyard existing, not getting sufficient sunlight. And so the connecting stair on the plan, which connects the 2nd floor, 1st floor to the garage, takes up the place of that soft landscaping. We did have, like I said, a full discussion with Ryan Santiago, and he is satisfied that the 0 soft landscaping as a variance would be okay.
But if it's decking, the water will be able to permeate through, I presume, would it?
I'm sorry.
If it's stairs or decking, presumably the water will be able to permeate through. Is that correct?
No, it's an enclosed stair. For the
it's enclosed.
That's right. That's on the rear. If you go to the 1st and 2nd floor plans, you'll see that there is a stairwell that on the back of of where the property is that connects between the garage and the first, second, and third floors. Hence the reason for the no landscape. But if you look at the context of what's happening on this is the CR zone, and if this was if this application was part of a commercial application with a residential component above, you could go 0 lot line and 0 soft landscape. So if you look at it contextually, if you look at the buildings to the west, which is from 825 and towards the west, and then you look at the commercial buildings to the east of it, which starts at 839, all of these buildings have 0. They're to the 0 lot line, and so looking at it contextually, we're looking at building in addition to an existing semi-detached in a commercial zone. If you look at the entirety of 825, which is just to the north of the drawing, they have a small paved driveway there, and there's 0 landscaping on that one. Now, part of the reason for the stairwell is this is a multi-use family dwelling. And so we have the parents on this in the basement and ground floor, and the son in the second and third floors. And they wanted to have a connecting stairwell because of the parents' infirm sort of age, and that connects directly to the garage.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Chong, anything you want to add? We're going to take it into committee. We don't have any further questions.
Can I address any of the variances for 829, or are all the concerns with 827, since we're doing this together?
Yeah, we're doing it together. So is there anything you want to add that hasn't been addressed so far or covered in the questions?
Well, I guess looking at the variances, I just wanted to talk through some of them in terms of the building length and allowable variances here. If we take for 829 the garage portion out of it, the length of the home is only 2437 as a permitted depth. And if you look at number 2 for 827, we're looking at a building length of 30 meters. However, when you take the garage portion out of it, it is actually only the 2437. And so that variance is a tricky one, given that if we don't count the house or count the garage on the permitted depth, but we're counting it on the length, it's kind of confusing in that sort of that one. But it's because of the garage situation. 829 does not have that condition, although there is an additional length here. The whole reason to be doing this renovation to these semi-detached houses is these are 2 families side by age that have multi-generations living in them. These are not going to be rented out. These are specifically for the purposes of rehousing, we'll call it, both of these families into a single dwelling so that they can share it. And that is why both of these families, both these homeowners, have tried to go together with this one, because they both believe in extended families being close, especially given the restrictions that we've had with COVID, and they want their family members close. And so the ability to have them all living in the same dwelling unit for them is preferable here. And looking at this contextually, we have a huge condo going up across the street at 6 stories. We have another huge condo going into on Logan Avenue, and then we're sandwiched in between all commercial properties within the CR zone. What they're looking for is to maintain, through the 4 tests, the character of the neighborhood. It is still residential living. It is still providing at least at 829 the soft landscaping, and looking at it from an architectural perspective, it fits in with the character of the neighborhood. So we're asking for relief based on the 4 tests for all of these variances, so that these 2 families can have their combined families living in these dwellings.
Okay, thank you, sir. Panel members, let's take it into committee. Any comments?
Chair, I'm happy to start. I did have some concerns, as Larry raised, about the soft landscaping, but I think the comments of the applicant related to city planning's take that it's not going to get enough sun back there do make sense. I think that a lot of the variances are because of the garages being included in the depth, and that was one of my concerns as well. But I do think that these are well-designed buildings, and particularly in this commercial stretch, I think there's got to be a little bit more leeway for a residential use. And I think this part of Gerard is pretty unique in that it does have a really strong mix of commercial and residential. So I kind of like the fact that this residential use will remain. So I think it's an appropriate redevelopment of these sites, and I think it'll be a positive contribution to the street. So I move to approve both item 4 and item 5. Item 4 with urban forestry condition 1 and 2, and item 5 with urban forestry condition number 1.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Nipfel. Okay, motion to approve. Item number 4 with forestry 1 and 2. Item number 5 with forestry number 1, moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved. Thank you. Okay, item number 6 is 33 Hopedale Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Mr. Latosek, the agent. We have planning doesn't appear to have any concerns. We do have transportation asking for a condition. We have correspondence in support from number 37 and 27 Beechwood Avenue, as well as number 29, 31, which is adjacent, 34, 36, 37, and 40 Hopedale. And we have correspondence expressing concern where the individual did not provide an address. We have opposition from number 21 Stanhope, 32, 34, 26, 28, and 19, and 30 Stanhope. And we also have presentation materials that were submitted by the occupants or owners of 26 Stanhope. And I believe there was also something I read about an order to comply regarding a shed at 33 Hopedale. Okay, do we have the agent on the line?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. This is Peter Latoshek from the Tag Studio.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Do we have 2 speakers? Do you have them both? They're both. Okay, Mr. Latosek, we have 2 speakers. I believe they're speaking in opposition, so if you can do a presentation, no more than 5 minutes. We're starting the clock now.
Okay. Basically, to just quickly go over the project, what we're proposing to do is to do an addition to the back, as well as a 3rd story, to an existing single-family detached dwelling at 33 Hopedale. It also includes adding a basement under the existing porch and a ground floor deck at the rear, as well as a 3rd story roof balcony at the rear. The minor variances that have, I guess, or are in front of you are basically the results of these. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is maybe allow the 2 speakers that you have to state their concerns, and then I can more directly try to respond to them, unless you feel like you need a further explanation of each one of these minor variances.
Panel members, do you need a full presentation, or are you okay with what the agent's requesting? Okay, I think we're okay with that. So we'll stop the clock and we'll go to the opposition, and then you can address their concerns if that's your preference.
Okay, so I had 2 speakers. Louis Michael Mancy from 44 Hopedale Avenue was here, but he left, so I gave him a call and he didn't respond to that. So the next speaker is Melanie Cooney.
Hello, it's Melanie.
Hi, Melanie. Can I have your address, please, for the record?
Yeah, 26 Stanhope Avenue.
Stanhope Avenue, okay. And you're in opposition?
I am.
So we're going to start the clock now. You have 5 minutes to state your concerns. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So 33 Hopedale's yard backs directly against my yard, which is a bungalow, and you can see that from the location map. Just a quick comment in response to the letters of support. I know the applicant doesn't have to come around to everybody, but he did do his due diligence soliciting support signatures in March from the surrounding neighbors in Hopedale, but did not consult with any of the neighbors on Stanhope. And the greatest impact on this build happens in the rear of 33 Hopedale, so just wanted to note that there. And, you know, from my perspective, there's 11 variances to existing bylaws, and I really do see this as a precedent-setting structure in the neighborhood. And my concern as a neighbor with the adjoining yard is, again, that all this building happens in the back of the house on a relatively small lot, very close to my property line and view. And there are 3 variances that really have the greatest impact to me. And I've been living here for 17 years, enjoyed my yard, which is unique in Toronto, as everyone knows. The depth of the back split, it looks to be approximately 13 feet. The height going from a modest 2-story to a 3-story increases from 19 to 30 feet. And the 3rd floor deck exceeds not only height bylaws, but deck size bylaws. And again, a greater lot area coverage of up to 55%. So the impact to me on my home and property is really in 4 precedent-setting ways. Really, the biggest of these is privacy. So if this is approved, a 3rd floor and over 19-foot rear deck is really an invasion of privacy on my property. This deck will have a direct view of my yard and bungalow. It'll tower above all the other homes on Hopedale, overseeing the yards on Stanhope. And again, access to sunlight. The structure will have an impact on the sun-green space. It will create shadows, and it will increase snow buildup. In addition, it'll compromise my current landscape, and the shadow that will be created will literally remove sun from my yard all afternoon and neighboring yards. And sightline obstruction. Before the deck, the shed that was built, I had an unobstructed view of the horizon and green space. It'll further remove the enjoyment of my yard with this 3-story structure. And then just from a property value perspective, I get builders and owners think the bigger the house, the more money, the more attractive. For me, the desirability of my yard and enjoyment is huge. And I see that as devaluing, you know, my overall enjoyment. My other concern, and I presented some of these examples, is that the cited examples are not in our surrounding location, and they misrepresent the character of the neighborhood. In addition to differences in lot size, street size, and access alleys behind the street, such as the west side of Hopedale and east side of Beechwood, others cited as comparisons are not in the same neighborhood, either significantly south of O'Connor and or east of Pace. The applicant also provided a rendering of their build on top of an approved plan at 40 Hopedale. This is a misrepresentation, as the house planned will be 2 stories with a ground level deck. The lot is 20% larger at 25 by 130 and backs onto an alley. Beechwood, as well as a private enclave, built on a slope overlooking the DVP with complete privacy and separate entrances. You know, there's not one 3-story home or one 3-story deck overlooking the direct neighbor's backyard's home across the location map presented by the applicant and the surrounding neighbors on Stanhope and Hopedale. Approving this plan with 11 variances is an impactful project. It creates a precedent for ever changing the historic character of the neighborhood. as builders and owners look to maximize investment, this will open the floodgates for similar builds. I would also like to note, you did mention the order to comply. There's a large structure directly against my fence, and I've got concerns with this as well because it was submitted as part of the survey and site plan as existing. And this really goes to the applicant following policies and procedures. Not sure what will happen with that, but again, it's a lot of build on a relatively small lot directly against my yard. So, you know, I certainly appreciate the committee's time in taking my perspective into consideration. And with that, I think I can close. I'm not sure if I'm out of time or not.
Yeah, you're a little over, but you're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Panel members, do you have any questions for the speaker? Seeing none? Okay, and the other one is gone. Okay, Mr. Latosek?
Yes,
I'll give
Madam
you,
Chair.
Yeah, I'll give
I,
you.
yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
No, I was gonna say we'll just start the clock and I'll give you 5 minutes to respond then.
It sounds good. I'll basically try to address, I guess, the main points that were stated by the neighbor from 26 Stanhope. Essentially, for clarification's sake, I want to just clarify that we are allowed a third-story addition on this lot in the zoning. That's not basically up for debate here. We are also allowed a roof deck. What we are requesting is a height variance because the house is existing, as I said. The ground floor is set at about more than a meter than the established grade already. The ceiling heights are set for the existing ground floor and the existing second floor, and I can't change those, unfortunately. If I was able to design this house from scratch as a new construction, I would be able to align those levels to a degree where a third story could fit within the mandated 8.5 building heights. That being said, we have, done our best to minimize the impact of this third floor on this existing neighborhood, which, yes, I agree that there is not very many precedents for it. There is a bad one actually on Stanhope, which we didn't even end up using because it's just bad, period. It just has the front wall, the rear wall, the side walls going up to the ceiling of the third floor, and then it's capped with a shallow roof. And it is basically very obtrusive. If the committee notes, we have taken steps to step back the front main wall, to step back the rear main wall, to create a geometry to the structure where it really minimizes its impact on the surrounding structures. If the staff member is able to bring up the planning rationale, the one submitted just yesterday at the last minute, I took the time to revise it a little bit and update it a little bit more with some context to aid here in lieu of these objections that we had seen from Stanhope. And in there, if you're able to look, I think it will maybe explain some of the things I'm trying to convey here.
We're just looking for it now. Just give him a minute.
It was labeled as planning rationale online.
It's in the supplemental agenda. We'll get it in a second.
Okay. It's on the last pages. If you go to the last 2 pages,
You see the tab
the next
says,
one down from this one, so 6 of 7.
0, yeah, that's the one. 06E4.
So this one, for example, if you look, it shows what the house looks like now and what we're proposing to do. You can see what the setting back from the front wall is doing, and we're absolutely keeping the ceiling height on the third floor as minimal as we can for the occupant to be able to utilize that space. And then if you go to the next page beyond that, we've taken the liberty of taking a panoramic from the rear of 33 Hopeful Hopedale, and showing you just exactly what kind of privacy the mature tree line that is established between the rear lot line of 33 Hopedale and the rear lot lines of the properties on the east side or on the west side of Stanhope create. And so to 26 Stanhope's Avenue's argument, can you even see anything through that tree line that we're showing you right there? So if privacy is a concern and shadowing is a concern, I think it's really more from that tree line, or it's taken care of by the tree line and also created by the tree line more than anything, I would say. And then to further add to that, basically really the most impact when it comes to shadowing and privacy and so on are really to the neighbors on Hopedale, which are supportive of this application. Really the main one that's most affected by shadowing is 37 Hopedale, which we have a support letter from. And we have communicated extensively with community planning staff. And as you have probably noted, there isn't even a staff report from them on file with any sort of recommendations for conditions or recommendations for refusal. They actually applauded us on the sort of gentleness of the design that we've proposed, seeing as, yes, there isn't very many precedents for this that currently exist on Hopedale. As far as 40 Hopedale, which we've used to show the scale of the building, I agree that it is not a third-story structure, but nonetheless, it is basically higher than our structure, and it does more in terms of shadowing than ours would ever do. And it is an approved precedent that was actually recently approved by this committee. So to end, I guess I will stop there and ask if the committee has any questions or needs me to elaborate further on any other issues that they might see present here.
Okay.
Chair, if I could ask that one question. When I looked at all the variances, the one that leapt out at me was variance number 3, the lot coverage. It's a significant coverage over what's permitted, and I think that kind of then reads on what I think particularly the rear neighbors are concerned about is the size of the dwelling relative to the lot. I wonder if you could just speak to the issue of lot coverage and whether this is unique to this area or whether there are others that are in a similar situation.
So I don't believe it's unique to this area. If you were able to bring up the planning rationale again, I address each one of these minor variances individually and provide precedents for them. And I'm confident that there's at least 2 or 3 precedents that I've quoted from within a radius of a kilometer. You know, if I could find precedents nearby, I wouldn't have done a search as far, but it's still within the general neighborhood, and I made sure that I picked precedent from matching zoning designations, plus similar size lots, I should say, but really the size of the lot should not be relevant, as this is a proportion or a ratio calculated to the size of the lot. So essentially, yes, there are under 3. I can't point here, but if you look, I quote 206 Woodville with 55, 7 Chilton, I think it said 50, 49, 48. You know, within that range, basically there are precedents. I guess that would be my biggest argument, because it's related really to, you know, how much of an addition we're proposing, and the shed that was previously mentioned is there. When I came to measure this house in almost a year ago, I think in August of 2020, that shed was in the backyard, It is noted on the survey dated September 28th, I think, 2020. If there is any question as to its legality, I'm not familiar with that at this point, and that is something that the owner will have to address separately with the bylaw officer or whoever may have, I guess, flagged this. This is essentially outside of my scope of work, and it's outside of the realm of this minor variance application. And any information that we have in terms of the list of our minor variances as it relates to the shed size has been taken into account in the lot coverage, in the landscaping and so on. So I am confident it is accurate and does not, it shouldn't cause sort of any issues with the potential approval of this application.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? Mr. Nipfel?
I had concerns, still do have concerns with the height variances that are requested. You've indicated that there is no prohibition against the third story, but you can't build the third story that you have before us without these variations. And I think that in context, it creates a very big building, a very high building. Now, I agree with, I gather the planning department commented on the articulation of the third floor and the fact that it's stepped back from both the front and the back wall, and that has some mitigating effect on the height, and I see that, and I would agree with that. Where I think the proposal that you have before us falls down is the deck. It seems to me that the deck is just rubbing salt into the wound. I don't see any justification for a deck at that height overlooking bungalows behind. I personally don't see, I certainly couldn't support a variance that would not only allow but enlarge the deck. And so I'm interested in knowing whether you would be open to removing the deck from the proposal. I certainly don't think it's supportable.
Well, so I through you, Madam Chair, I guess I would say it maybe removing the deck from the proposal is kind of an unfair compromise in that we are allowed a deck of up to 4 square meters. I think if it came down to it, I think a fair compromise would be to reduce it to meet the zoning bylaw at 4 square meters. I don't really see that getting a lot of use, honestly. I mean, the size of it, as an architect, would fit a couple chairs and maybe a small table, which sort of, I guess, suits its purpose as having a kind of an outdoor space outside a master bedroom. It's not accessible really, to any visitors because they would have to go through the master bedroom, and who wants to do that? And I don't believe anybody would be sitting out there in a Canadian winter. So at the end of the day, if that is the sore point of this, I think we would be more than happy to agree to reduce it to, place a condition to reduce it to 4 square meters and thereby eliminate that variance from this application. Period. If that would help to maybe soften the concerns of the neighbors from Stanhope, but as I already showed you, the tree line really provides the greatest privacy buffer to them that and it's not something that we even did. It's just naturally there.
Okay.
So to me, it really does a lot. That tree line really does a lot to mitigate any privacy, and the privacy concerns really should be coming more from the Hopedale side, from 31, 37, and so on, which we have support from.
Okay.
They see no issue with it.
Yeah, you've mentioned that already, so I'd like to just stick with the questions now. Is there any other questions, panel members? Okay. All right, we're ready to take it into committee then for a decision. Any comments?
I'll start with some comments. I understand the concerns of the neighbors on the street over, but I do think that this is a well-designed building. I know there's not much in the way of precedent for third stories in the area, but I think this is massed in a way, both being set back from the front and rear, and being sloped up. It's not. I don't find it an overly aggressive addition. And I understand Carl's point about the balcony, but I think we're just talking about 2 extra meters here in terms of 2 extra square meters in terms of what's being proposed. I think the immediate neighbor support, both adjacent and across the street, is impressive to me, that you'd have that kind of unanimity, because yes, that is where I think the greatest impact will be. So given that, I'm going to be supporting this.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Larry?
I just wonder, I sort of agree with Peter. I am sympathetic to particularly the concerns from the people in behind, but this is not a unique situation. I wonder, Peter, to maybe address what Carl's concerned about, could we maybe include some privacy screening around that deck? It didn't look like from the drawings that had privacy screening around it from the rear elevation. So I wonder if we put a condition like that would be helpful.
Carl?
Could I comment on that, Larry? I thank you for trying to address the concern. I think privacy screening around a deck of that size will make the building look much bigger and higher. I took the applicant at his word. If the deck were only 4 square meters, it's likely to just be a rest space. At the proposed size, it's likely to be a little bit more. Of the 2 options, I would prefer to have the deck reduced in size. In other words, have variance number 8 deleted, but I wouldn't put screening around it, because I think at this size, the screening makes the building look much higher. I agree with Peter. The articulation of the roof and the setback of the roof has done a fair bit to reduce the impact of the size of the building. The only other suggestion I would make is that if there is approval granted, that it be tied to the plans and the drawings that we have before us to make sure that this is the way in which the 3rd floor is masked.
I think that's a fair point, Carl, and I do agree that I think the screening that porch would add more visual mass to it. So yeah, I think deleting variance number 8 is a good compromise. So I'll go ahead and move approval.
So do you want to refuse the variance, or do you want me to go out of committee and have
it would have to be
removed?
refused,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the applicant didn't make that revision in his presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Peter.
So I would move approval of the application with the exception of variance number 8 for the deck size, and also adding a condition to tie it to the plans and sections on file.
And there's also a transportation report.
Yes, the transportation condition from July 14th around restoring the paved area.
Right. Okay, so that's the motion moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay. Okay.
I'd second that.
Okay,
sorry.
so the motion to approve is including the transportation report dated, I think it's July 21st. There is another condition to tie the approval to the plans, the drawings submitted, and to refuse variance number 8. Moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Okay, the application has been approved with those conditions. Okay, thank you, everyone. The next item is item number 7, 2343 Gerard Street East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, planning rationale submitted by Christian Chan, the agent, as well as presentation materials. We have email correspondence from planning, they don't have any concerns. And forestry is asking for conditions number 1 and 2. Correspondence in opposition from the residents at 155 Hannaford, and I believe they're speaking. Are they on the line?
We have Christian Chan and David Curry here.
Okay, so yeah, David Curry is the opposition. All right, so can I have the agent please identify himself for the record?
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Christian Chan, C2 Planning on behalf of the owners of the subject property, Urban Co.
Okay, we're going to start the clock as soon as you start speaking. You have 5 minutes because we do have one speaker in opposition, so if you can do a brief presentation, please.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So the proposal before you today is to construct a 3-story detached fourplex with a roof deck on a major road and a minor arterial at 2343 Gerard. In our opinion, the proposal will contribute to the missing middle housing supply, as it is a 3-story walk-up with 4 units in it on a major street. The proposed floor area of the building is 352.94 meters squared with the FSI of 0.84, which is compliant with the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw, I'd like to note, does permit 1.0 density along the major street in comparison to the interior of the neighborhood, which provides for a lesser FSI max. The proposed area of the individual units range from 102 to 142 meters squared, so some of them could be considered small family-sized units. The proposed number of stories and height of the building at 11 meters complies with the maximum permitted height in the bylaw, as well as the number of stories. The reason for the variance for height at 13.46 meters is for the stair enclosure element that's at the top of the building to access the amenity space on the roof. If you also notice, the amenity space on the roof is set back from the front and rear main walls of the building in order to mitigate any issues of overlook and privacy, but also to provide amenity space for the residents of the apartment units. So 3 parking spaces would be provided on the site in the rear yard, which is necessitating the reduction in soft landscaping because of the hammerhead turnaround that is proposed. That is the provision of safe entry and access to the site. And as noted before, in one of the other applications before you today, there were some concerns with regards to vehicular movements, and this would provide an adequate in and out vehicular movement for cars for the required parking spaces on the site. In terms of consultations, we had discussions with Mr. Santiago, the planner for the city, reviewing the file. They've noted no objections to the revised proposal, which provides permeable pavers, which they requested to be provided for all the parking spaces and driveway areas in the rear yard. We also had discussions with Urban Forestry, who did a site visit. They have noted no objections to proposed variances, but as you've mentioned, Madam Chair, the conditions that they're requesting, so we do intend to retain an arborist and will provide Urban Forestry the report and replanting and landscaping plan upon submission of the tree permit. So the subject site is developed already with the house. It's on a major street, as I've mentioned. It's characterized by a mix of detached and semi-detached homes. With triplexes, fourplexes, there's a 6-unit apartment building immediately to the east of our site, also with rear yard parking and a parking garage. The immediate context has a built form character of 3-story buildings. There is also a 2374 Gerard East, a 3-story tall rooftop deck, 4-unit fourplex on the north side, about 100 meters to the east. Again, this is classified as a minor arterial and major street in the official plan and zoning bylaw maps, and in the policies of 4.1.5 does speak to the fact that major streets are considered to have to contain sites that would be considered for as we would consider intensification along especially a major street and a transit route. With some of the other variances that I think might be the focus of objection with regards to soft landscaping, again, the reduction is provided for the safe turnaround for the vehicles, and then with permeable paving as requested by planning staff, we do not object to the reduction in the soft landscaping. And with respect to the height, the massing of the building is less than, it is 1 meter below the maximum permitted height, and the requested variance of 13.46 meters is specifically for the element for the stair enclosure. So with all that, I'd submit to you and the committee that the proposal meets the 4 tests, and of course, on page 6 of my planning rationale, the 3 conditions that were requested by staff. And
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have the opposition? Mr. Curry? Hello, Mr. Curry, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you just state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's David Curry, and I live at 155 Hannaford Street.
Okay. You have 5 minutes, and the panel members, we did read your submission also. Okay, we're starting.
Very good.
Yeah, we're starting the clock now, so go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak. A letter about the requested variance landed on my doorstep, so I felt it was incumbent on me to raise some concerns, especially when I saw that all of the parking lot all the parking's at the back of the lot, and that's where our backyard is. So, the first point I'm going to make is that has to do with the term minor variance. So the change from 50% to 31% of soft landscaping seems like a pretty big change. So we're wondering if it's appropriate to call the change minor. So what we're concerned about is the following. How will this proposed change affect our ability to enjoy our backyard? How will the proposed landscaping variance affect the great view I've got from the window at the back of my house? And will I still see lots of trees, birds, and small animals? What's going to be the visual impact of creating a much longer driveway and the 3 parking spots close to our backyards? Is it a plan that's sensitive enough to issues such as noise concerns about parking, concerns about privacy, concerns about the fact that 2343 Gerard borders 4 houses on a quiet residential street? What impact will the proposed variance have on the natural environment? How will it impact root systems of mature trees on the property? And what steps will be taken to make sure that the big majestic pine trees at the back of the property are given a fighting chance to survive? What steps can be taken to mitigate the negative impact that the loss of greenery and more cars and parking might have on our neighboring properties? In conclusion, let me say that I don't bear the developer of the property any ill will, but I would like to hear them make a persuasive case why they can't achieve their goal of increasing density while staying within the limits of the existing zoning bylaws. We vote and we pay taxes too, and we just want to make sure that our municipal government's making sure that the neighbors on quiet residential streets aren't made to suffer because high zoning standards aren't being maintained. Thanks very much for letting me talk about my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Mr. Chan, can you please address the concerns specifically about the tree and, I guess, loss of ambiance in the back with the parking?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I can appreciate the neighbor's comments. Just in response, I'd like to note that the existing rear yard of the property is, I guess for a very polite term, extremely naturalized in its current state. It has been unkept for a number of years, and as the photos show you, it is quite, the polite term I think is naturalized. So I can appreciate that there would be a number of wildlife residents occurring on the property currently. However, to achieve the city's goals of intensification along major streets, providing missing middle height housing, the city requires a certain number of parking spaces. And with respect to the soft landscaping reductions, the provision of these parking spaces are required to achieve this goal of providing the missing middle fourplex. And unfortunately, yes, we do have to seek a reduction in soft landscaping in the rear yard. No, I just, again, like to reiterate that these discussions were had with community planning, and the concerns with regards to trees will be addressed through the urban forestry's review process, and we have retained an arborist that will make an assessment and will deliberate with urban forestry to see where existing trees will be maintained on the site and where a replanting plan can be achieved that both increases privacy and maintains an adequate amount of soft landscaping as well as plantings on the site to maintain consistency with what Mr. Curry has raised in his concerns. I'd also like to note with respect to the driveway, it is common in the immediate context where it can be provided a driveway can go to the rear yard, and in fact, on those contiguous 3 properties that Mr. Curry lives on, there's also a driveway that leads to their rear yard for their access to their rear yards and parking. So this is a common situation that occurs in the broader context and in the immediate context, and it's something that I believe, in my opinion, is necessary in order to achieve an appropriate redevelopment of the site that, in fact, yes, it has a reduction in soft landscaping, but complies with, for example, the massing parameters and the density requirements of the bylaw. So there has to be a balance of achieving the different goals for intensification along a transit route on a major avenue with respect to some reductions in soft landscaping that I believe will be addressed through the urban forestry's review process.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any questions? And did you have any questions for the speaker? I didn't see any, but just double check.
Madam Chairman, I have one question for the speaker, or for the applicant.
Okay.
Could we look at drawing, the site plan drawing, which is A300? Now, the applicant has the benefit over me of, I haven't been into the backyard of the properties on Hannaford, so this may not make sense, but just looking at that site plan, you've got I think a 1.04 meter landscape strip between the individual parking stalls and the property to the north. And that's adjacent to an existing garage. Is it possible, and is this a naive suggestion, but is it possible to just shift the parking to the north so that that strip of landscaping in fact occurs along the south side of the property instead of the north side of the property? Sorry, I'm wrong. It's to the east. To the east, there's a strip of land that's landscaping. Is it possible, and then the parking goes right up to the property line on the west. Is it possible to just switch and put that strip of landscaping along the west property boundary, which would place some landscaping between the 3 parking spaces and some of the driveway and the properties on Hannaford? It looks to me like that would be a fairly minor revision, and it also appears to me that that would assist with the retention of the 3 trees that are shown along the west property boundary.
Thank you, Mr. Niffel. When I'm reviewing the survey, I see that that particular tree, should the parking spaces be shifted to the east, is a 0.4 meter diameter breast height tree. So that would be a tree that's protected by the city's private tree bylaw. So if the suggestion were to be that we would move those 3 parking stalls to the east, it would cause the removal of a protected tree.
Okay.
So I don't think that would be an ideal situation because, of course, subject to urban forestry's review, we would have to be maintaining as many private trees as possible on the site. So right now, and where the parking spaces have been proposed, do not cause the removal of any private tree by law protected trees.
Could a fence be created along the west property boundary between the parking lot and the properties on Hannaford, or would the fence itself interfere with the retention of the trees that are, well, there's one tree it looks to be on the property line and one that's further into the Hannaford property and one that's further into your property?
Yes, Urban Forestry had advised us that there is a boundary tree that they would have to review, but a fence can definitely be installed along the west property line, and the fence bylaw does provide in a rear yard along a side lot line that a fence of up to 2 meters could be provided. And because of the way that the fence is constructed, the posts wouldn't necessarily impact the roots of an existing tree that would be in the vicinity of the fence. So
okay, is that a proposal that you would support? I mean, I'm not questioning the intensification here. It's desirable, and I'm definitely on side. I'm just trying to look at some mitigating impact from of the parking area to the homes on Hannaford.
Yes. So, sir, should a fence condition be imposed as part of an approval for this proposal, then yes, we would definitely implement a fence. And I think that would be the intent anyways. If we would like to secure that through a condition as part of the decision here today, then my clients would be supportive of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions, panel members? No? Okay, let's take it into committee. Any comments?
Let me start. I thought this was quite a desirable application, quite appropriate and responsible for the area. As the applicant pointed out, Gerard Street is a minor arterial. It is the type of area that should be accommodating a densification and density. I did think Carl's suggestion is a good one, and subject to my colleagues' comments, I'd be happy to make a motion that condition put in. I'd also like to, I know that the applicant did indicate their agreement to put permeable pavers in the back. I don't know if that's in their presentation, but I think it's appropriate to also attach a condition that parking structures in the rear are made with permeable pavers. So if my colleagues are okay, then I'll move a motion to approve to a condition for the erection of a fence on, Carl, is it the west boundary?
I think it's the west boundary, but it doesn't appear that you need it for the whole west boundary. I looked to the applicant to advise if this is wrong, but it would be along the west boundary with 59, 57, and 55 Hannaford. Those are the properties that are affected by that parking.
Okay, let's come out of committee. Can you please confirm, Mr. Chan, that we put the right condition on for the fence?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can confirm. That is the correct.
Okay, and it's 159, 157, and 155, right?
I'm just double checking the survey, but
those are the properties that back onto your property.
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clay, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make that condition. Also condition that the rear parking paths are constructed at permeable pavers. And I believe there is 4 street conditions 1 and 2.
Yep. Okay, do I have a seconder? Mr. Nipfel. All right, motion to approve moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel, including forestry conditions 1 and 2. Permeable pavers to be used in the rear for the parking, and a condition for a 1.5 meter high fence abutting the properties at 155, 157, and 159 Hannaford. Okay, all in favor? Okay, your application's been approved with those conditions. The next item is item number 8, 11 Woodland Heights. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, presentation materials submitted by Franco Romano, the agent. We have email correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection as well as TRCA, and neither one has any concerns. Do I have the agent on the line?
Morning, Madam Chair. Franco Romano, Action Planning, 2095 Autumn Breeze.
Okay, thanks. Do you have both speakers? Okay, Franco, we've got 2 speakers. So can I ask you to do a presentation? We'll start the clock now.
Certainly. If we can go to my presentation slides, please. I'd like to briefly go over the proposal. This is for building additions. You'll see on the location map that the property fronts onto Woodland Heights and backs onto Grenadier Pond, so there's topography here. The gross floor area or variance that's being proposed here, floor space index, is because of the long-term stable slope line. So this is one of the first properties. There's a few others within this area, but not necessarily on Woodland Heights, that has this condition. Most of the other properties here would have had their gross floor area or floor space index calculated over the entire property. And this is by virtue of the 2013 zoning bylaw and the city's official plan. So what you'll see in the backyard is I've put in notation that the total site area is 1,243.5 square meters, and the gross floor area over the entire site is 0.34, or just like most other properties on Woodland Heights, a zoning bylaw compliant floor space index, because 0.35 is permitted. You'll see that the building footprint that's being proposed is a small addition to towards the front and towards the south side. Otherwise, the building footprint is being maintained, and that's sensitive not only to the natural features but also to the long-term stable slope, and we've worked with TRCA and Ravine in that regard. What you'll see on the photographs here is that topography is sloping and rising as one moves along Woodland Heights. You'll see that buildings along Woodland Heights have a similar condition where you have a garage that's etched into the landscape, and then 2 levels of living above plus a roof. And if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is that's exactly what's being proposed here. So the proposal currently maintains the existing driveway and garage, and there's a small addition to the right or the south. And then the 3rd floor is within the roof line. So because the roof is considered a flat roof, that is why the height is being measured to the top of the roof under the old bylaw. Otherwise, if it was to the midpoint, it would be a compliant height. So I'm showing there the 10.33 meters from established grade, which is partially at or underground and partially above grade given the topography. And what you'll also see are the locations of the terraces. So consistent and sympathetic to the architectural style, the terraces are located beyond the sloping roof, and that sloping roof at the 2nd floor provides for the screening. It provides for the screening. It's a 1.07 meters, I believe, tall roof line that provides the screening, but it also further sets back the terraces from the property lines and from the walls of the building. So these terraces are from secondary spaces, sleeping as well as office spaces. And when we look at the terrace setbacks to the property lines, at the 2nd floor, it is at least 6.5 meters from the side lot line. And at the 3rd floor, it is at least 10.5 meters from the side lot line. So not only are there screening mechanisms in place in terms of the design to mitigate overlook and privacy from those terraces, in addition to the secondary living areas, but the building setback is also quite substantial. And if you look at a floor plan, you're going to see that 3rd floor terrace is basically L-shaped, and it is oriented towards the rear yard. So this is the second floor plan. If you go to the third floor plan, next page, you'll see that that terrace in the upper right is L-shaped, and the long, I guess the width of it, the length, the left and right, is oriented towards the rear yard and Grenadier Pond. So I would submit that the variances are sympathetic to the topography, the natural features of the site, and have no unacceptable adverse impact. So subject to any questions, Madam Chair, that's my presentation.
Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll go to the opposition and then we'll see if there are any questions after you've rebutted. Okay, do you have Mr. Gardner?
Hi everyone, good morning. Just confirming that you can hear me.
I can, and if you can start with identifying yourself, name and address, please.
My name is Alex Gardner. I reside at 7 Woodland Heights.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to state your concerns. I'm not sure if you have concerns or if you're supporting the application.
Generally supportive. It's just one very simple question, less of a concern, more of just an uncertainty, if you will. Because we reside on a slope, it's difficult for me to gauge the height relative to my property. And so what I'm ultimately trying to understand is the height of the building relative to the height of my building. We've got, the roof lines as you progress down the slope, obviously, maintain a similar slope to the road, if you will. I don't know whether the height of 11 will surpass the height of my home, number 7, which is further up on the slope. That's really what it boils down to for me. I'm just trying to understand the height of their roof line relative to mine. Right now, because I'm at the top of the hill, I have the luxury of being able to kind of see from the 3rd floor of my house over top all of the roofs. And I'm trying to just understand whether that will be impacted with this new structure. Apart from that, I'm thrilled with the design and the build and everything. It looks great. I just don't know that one specific detail.
Okay, well, we usually have the applicant come back after all the speakers. I have 2 more listed, so I'll have him address that issue when he comes back.
Sure, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Paul, are you on the line?
I am, hello.
Hi, again, I'm not sure if you're in opposition or support, but if you can start by giving us your name and address for the record.
My name is Jordan Paul. I reside at 15 Woodland Heights, and I have the house south of 11 Woodland Heights.
Okay, so are you in opposition or are you in support? Or?
No, I just same as Alex, Mr. Gardner there. When the plans are done, my wife and I were looking and just trying to guess where it would be in comparison to the north house, and where it, like, just as a reference. So the drawings, if you look at it, there's no reference points of our house or of Alex's house next door.
Okay.
So it's really, really hard to basically guess what 10.33 meters is. So at this point, we're saying, well, it could be here, but it could be there. We really don't have the means to measure that and to see where the height of that, and then obviously the chimney on the north side goes beyond that, I'm assuming.
Okay, so same answer. When Mr. Romano comes back, I'm going to have him address that and see if he can maybe explain it with, I don't know if we have any visuals to illustrate it, but let's see what he says when he comes back. Okay, do you have the 3rd person? Mr. Jalway? Hello?
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Jellway. You've been unmuted. It says here that you may or may not speak depending on the contents of discussion. So if you'd like to say something now, we'd like to hear from you, Mr. Jellway.
Hello?
We can hear you speaking very quietly.
Okay, I was not going to speak. The name is Ula Jelve. I live at 1 Grenadier Heights. This is the first time now that I do see the plans, and I have no opposition. It looks very good, and actually I wasn't scheduled to talk. This is why I didn't answer right away.
That's okay. I had you down as that maybe you do, maybe you don't, depending what's being said, but that's fine. Thank you for your input in any case.
All right.
All right. Mr. Romano, can you just speak to the two issues of the adjacent neighbors regarding kind of giving them more of a visual of the height of your proposal? And if we have anything we can put up, just let us know.
Well, I think if you take a look at slide number 1 of my presentation, you're going to see that 7 Woodland is the property to the north, 7 Woodland Heights, and you're going to see that there's a rise in topography from the subject site up to 7 Woodland Heights, and a little more difficult to see 15 Woodland Heights, but 15 Woodland Heights is a little lower than the subject site. So in terms of the overall height, I guess first what I'll say is that every property gets measured from their own established grade. So this is not a situation in this area where there's a flat topography, so everybody has the same.
Well, I don't think they're asking for the logistics. They're just trying to get a sense of where the roof line's going to sit compared to their houses. That's kind of what they're wondering.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in terms of the top of the highest point of the roof for the proposal, I would say it's going to be very near to the height of 15 Woodland Heights, which is the property to the south. As you'll see that property, and you'll see that in the photograph, that it has 2 levels of living above that etched in garage, plus a roof line on top of it, and that's virtually identical to what is being proposed, except the proposal has floor space within the roof line. And I think that what that amounts to for number 7 Woodland Heights is that it would be at a I'm going to estimate that it is going to be slightly lower than 7 Woodland Heights because of the rise in topography and the difference in the elevations, both the first floor elevation and the surrounding grades.
Okay. Do you have the 2 speakers still on the line? Just want to ask them. Hi, Mr. Gardner, does that help you out a bit? Because we don't have any visuals, unfortunately. We don't have any elevations that show the adjacent properties, but...
Yeah, I think I'm probably privy to the similar drawings that you would reference. Slightly lower is helpful. It doesn't quite answer my question. I don't know whether this derails anything per se, but it would just be something that I would appreciate having a little more clarity on. Whether that's something that can be accomplished in the context of this discussion, I don't know. It would just be really helpful if I could see a wider view of the design that is inclusive of my property. I don't know if that's a reasonable request, but
yeah, it's not a requirement. I think it's a reasonable request, and we often urge applicants to show adjacent properties, but it's not a requirement, and it's, so.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. It's just difficult to gauge the impact. Again, I don't know whether this derails anything, but I really can't judge how my property will be impacted because I don't actually know what slightly lower implies.
Yeah, I wish I could give you more clarity, but I'm afraid I can't, so it's, yeah. Okay.
So,
so I guess I'll ask you again. So are you like basically in support then still of the application? Or, I mean, we're basically dealing with the variances before us, and the applicant has submitted to the city what's required. And so we're just looking at what's before us.
So if I were to hypothetically, there's a variance that exceeds the height. The height is ultimately determined by a consistency relative to the other properties where, you know, my height and Jordan's height to the south of the property in question are all determined based on grade and the height relative to grade. This is exceeding that. And I guess the challenge I have is, you know, if we don't agree to this variance, then it's going to be more consistent with every other house on this property. If the variance goes through, then somehow it's going to be in excess of what is currently allowable, and I just don't know what that means. So it's a big blind spot for me. How strongly I feel about this would be a function of how high it's going to be. If it ends up being higher than my roof line and the property's built, there's not much I can do. So I have to go on the word that it's slightly lower, whatever that means. So it's a difficult spot for me to be in. Like, out of curiosity, what is the option that I have here? If I were to have a really strong opinion, not saying that I do.
Basically, we've noted your opinion, like we've noted your concerns, and the committee then makes a decision. There is an appeal period. You can appeal it to the local appeal tribunal.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, again, anything that I could get with more specificity would make me feel more comfortable. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, again, that's something that you, once the decision is made, whatever way it's going to go, I don't know. But that's something that you have to do offline with Mr. Romano if he has something to show you with the measurements. But that's kind of, it's not before us here in terms of an actual plan that we can show you. So, as I said,
completely understand. I think I'm ultimately appealing, I guess, to Mr. Romano. If that's an option, that would be appreciated. Otherwise, you know, I would say that this is free to proceed. I don't want to object.
Okay. And Mr. Paul, just because this is normally not sort of how we do things, but just because you asked the question, if you can just briefly, it's the same thing that you've just heard said. You are able to appeal, but we don't have any drawings or anything to show you other than what Mr. Romano said in terms of the height.
I just have a question for Mr. Romano.
Well,
do you have any drawings?
Okay. Again, I'm going out of format, but I will ask him if he can get together with you after this hearing with both the neighbors with something. Okay, and I'll see if he can answer that.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Romano, just to that one question, would you be able to touch base with the adjacent neighbors and show them some elevation that shows where the roof lines are going to hit?
Yeah, happy to show that. You know, could have, if I was aware of this query beforehand, I could have helped to assuage that issue. I will say that number 7 is currently 1.3 in terms of the first floor, where the first floor is for each building. Number 7 today is about 1.3 to 1.5 meters taller.
Okay.
And number 15 is about 1.5 meters lower. So there's going to be some differences in the overall height just by virtue of that topography, because it rises as one is moving from south to north.
Fair enough. So I think you can.
But I'm happy they can reach out to me, Franco D. Romano at Rogers.com, or give me a call.
Okay.
416-737-7526.
Okay, great. Everybody knows your number now. I hope you don't get inundated with calls. Okay, let's take it into committee. Panel members, do you have any further questions for Mr. Romano? Mr. Niffel.
Madam Chairman, unless my colleagues have any further questions, I'd like to bring forward a motion of approval. I think this is a very sophisticated solution. I'm particularly impressed with the way in which the terraces have been integrated into the roof form to mitigate any overlook problems. I would like to move approval without any conditions.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I would I just want to agree. I mean, I'm familiar with this area. This is spectacular lot. Looks like the design of the building is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and in keeping with the lot. So I would be happy to second that.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved. So, to the two neighbors, please get in touch with Mr. Romano.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We just need to take 5 minutes. We're having some technical issues.
Okay, so we're gonna take 5. There's some technical issues here.
Oh, it's back on the laptop now. That's good. That's reassuring at least. Yeah, log in and then just leave it. Yeah, you got it. His desktop computer lost access to the network, so he couldn't share anything. Our next 5 applications are without contention.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, man, take a break now.
Yeah.
But this is fine. And then is there anything else you can do?
Not terribly, I don't
Should
think.
be okay, as long as I get enough time.
There's like 2 more things. Oh, item 19. Item 19.
Item 19 is the one with all those crazy conditions.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I have my
They
notes here
actually,
from Barb.
when did you get those?
This is from Barb. Why I didn't take my home information.
They sent me an email this morning with 7 conditions. I don't know if
This
they're all
is
the
what I
same.
have.
Here. Bronze skill.
Maybe just do a quick, tell me which one's missing. 'Cause
Yeah.
basically the only one originally is the screening's okay. So this is what Barb sent me regarding the first time, right? So forestry, well, it's self-explanatory.
Type plans with revisions. Yeah. The window wells are over. There should be no issue. So these are the ones they sent me. It just seems to be out of things. So substantially in accordance, but they want building permits revised in some way. More building.
None of that applies to us.
Yeah, so I told them, I essentially went through, it was like, these are the ones I think we'll be able to impose, the other ones I
So
think
what
are
did you
personal.
tell them? Because basically Barb said the only one is the screening. Everything else
I told them substantially in accordance and the screening would be okay,
So why is she saying here tied to plans but with revisions is not practical?
because they're asking for this, but then they're also asking that the window wells and this be revised through the building
But we
permit.
don't have that.
Right,
We just have this.
right, so you can say, hey, substantially in accordance according to what we have in file, but any further revisions beyond that isn't gonna fly, you know?
I don't even remember, like, I don't even know what they wanted to revise unless I missed something.
I told them,
Originally,
I
like,
told them what I thought would be imposable based on past, but
Yeah.
they should be ready to have a discussion with you guys.
so that's gonna be another
Yeah, it'll be a while.
time waster.
Yeah.
Great.
no, I mean, on the other one. Oh, I see you there. Okay, so I've made you presenter on the laptop. I have no idea. I'm just gonna run to the bathroom real quick. It is that simple.
Okay, panel members, we're back. Are you there? I only see Peter.
It's cold in here.
Larry, are you there? I don't think Carl is. Okay. We'll wait. What's the beep for? Oh, that's you, got it. Yeah. Okay, well, they're all MIA. Yeah, all I need is one. Well, Carl did say he had a stomach ache, so maybe it's hitting him now. We were, apparently couldn't make it. Which would have been kind of good for me. I haven't seen Aaron, like I've only sat with him once. Like Zaire sat with me last time, and he's really, I was like, wow, this is good. Okay. Carl, you're there? So,
I'm here, sorry.
okay, we have.
I just had an email from Larry. He's having computer issues, so we can start without him for now.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was planning. So, okay. Item number 9, 145 Strathmore Boulevard. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, an arborist report prepared by Patricia Thompson, who's a consultant, a geotechnical report prepared by Rene Kuyambao, a consultant, and variance rationale submitted by the agent, Mr. Johnson. And we have forestry asking for conditions 1 and 2. We don't have any opposition speakers. Do I have the agent on the line?
Mr. Johnston.
Hello.
Hi. Can you-
Yes, yes, I can just hear you.
All right, can you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Madam Chairman, your audio is not that strong, but I'm prepared to go ahead.
So I don't know if you can hear me, but basically if you can identify. Yeah, well, I'm screaming right now, but sure. Okay, can you just identify yourself for the record, and then I'll see if the panel members need a presentation. We might go straight to questions.
All right, my name is Paul Johnson Architect. I'm the sole proprietor. We're representing Toronto Community Housing in this application for a reduction and release from the original site-specific bylaw at 145 Strathmore.
Okay. Panel members, do you need a presentation? I think okay, we can go straight to questions. Do you have any questions, panel members?
No.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, we've read all the materials. Panel members, we don't have any questions. We are actually ready to go into committee to make a decision. Is there anything you want to add that wasn't in the materials that you feel you want to highlight?
Maybe just for the sake of committee's consideration, the bylaw is site-specific and it's perhaps 50 years old, and the parking spaces, let's say, that were provided under the original site plan back in 1971, for which the bylaw is quite consistent, the requirements for 4 parking spaces, I'm sorry, 1 parking space for every 4 unit is perhaps not reflective of, let's say, the fact that the development is 1 block away from the Greenwood subway station. Most of the tenants are, let's say, without cars or do not use them. The access on Strathmore is unique, and therefore we've addressed only the entrance to parking and to the 14-story block A. No other, let's say, considerations have been made, except that we have addressed this from an accessibility point of view. And I'd like to say that the Toronto Community Housing accessibility standards that we've incorporated exceed those of the City of Toronto. And we have tried to make those accessibility standards part of the application and the reason for the request for variance.
Thank you, sir. Panel members, let's take it into committee unless I don't think you had any questions. Mr. Niffel, you have a question, or are you ready for a motion?
No, I don't, Madam Chairman. I'd like to bring forward a motion.
Okay.
Unless my colleague has any further questions, I'd like to bring forward a motion of approval subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2. I think that, as indicated, the context of the site would tend to suggest that the parking is a little dated, the parking requirement is a little dated. More importantly, in this case, there is a need here for accessibility adjustments to the site, and I'm very pleased to see the community housing is making those adjustments. It results in non-compliance with some minor non-compliance with some bylaw issues, and I think that that's quite reasonable and appropriate given the use and the location.
Okay, so motion to approve, including forestry conditions 1 and 2. Mr. Reid, you're seconding. All in favor? Your application's been unanimously approved, sir. Thank you. Item number 10, we have 1173 Dundas Street East, number 29. We have a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and we have an 11 signature petition in support signed by owners of a number of units in the building. Okay, do I have the agent on the line?
Hello, hi, I am the owner of the unit. My name is Kathy Hollett.
Okay, Let me just, we may not need a presentation. Let me check with my members. I see heads saying no. Mr. Clay, we're on item number 10, just starting. So,
Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
I would appreciate a clarification. I don't understand what's being requested. I can't figure it out from the drawing. So what I'm trying to determine, I gather, it's the use of the roof for an outdoor space. I can't figure out how that relates to adjacent roofs and how issues of privacy might be affected. And so I'm just, the drawings aren't helping me understand what's being proposed.
Do you want me Yep, to? yep, to please go ahead. So
Yeah,
we
just
don't.
explain to me what you want to do.
So we- Okay, so
Originally, it was designed very much like the way it is right now, but inside, to comply with the flooring allowance space, we had an area cut out, like, so you would go into these stairs that you see in the drawing. And, oh, you don't have drawings?
No, we do.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. So, so what I'm asking for doesn't actually change the exterior or anything, really. It just changes the amount of inside space that I have. See, if you see the stairs coming up, it takes a great deal of space, and that's like another little hallway to get into the area to go out to the deck. And in the original building plan, which was approved, there was a larger space cut open in the floor to see below to the second loft area. But I'm just asking that I not have to cut that area. Well, some of it is actually already cut out. We cut it out to the existing the big beam that goes across the whole building. And that supports the third floor. So really, I just want to have a very minimal amount of space just added to that interior.
Could I clarify? Could we go to the second floor plan? Okay, now currently you come up. There's a washroom there, and there's a stairway. The stairway takes you to the floor area that's adjacent to the washroom, right?
Yes, I call the loft area.
Okay, and now that's inside, right?
Yes, completely.
Okay, and then where the X is, what's that? If I stood on what you're calling the loft area, do I look down to where the X is?
Yes, it's open.
Okay, and then there's a roof over all of that.
Yes.
Okay, now what is it you want to do?
No, then if you go to the drawing that goes up to, so basically I had already been given a building permit to add stairs and put a vestibule and a rooftop deck on top. And
okay.
Then the building inspector came and said it was a little bit bigger, and then there was a lot of discussion. Actually, that's a whole other point that I wanted to talk about, which isn't really related to this, but so then I went first to the building permit people to see if there's anything else that I needed to do to comply. So I registered another building permit, and then that person told me that I needed to apply for a COI zoning minor variance because it was, I think, 3 meters over. So it's
the deck.
No, it has nothing to do with the deck. This is all about the inside. It's the inside vestibule room, where you come up from the stairs to the third floor vestibule. There's double-sided doors that go out onto the deck. The inside room is all I'm asking for, is an additional space there. Before, they wanted me to cut a hole. There was a plan to cut a hole, so that made the flooring space inside smaller. I mean, yes, smaller.
So your proposal doesn't have doesn't create any difficulties or implications for privacy with the neighbors. It's all internal.
Exactly.
Okay, that wasn't clear. Thanks very much. That's helpful.
Sorry about that.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? Seeing none? Okay, Kathy, we're ready to go into committee. Is there anything you feel you want to add? We're ready to make a decision, and we have read all the materials.
Thank you very much. I just had a question that
because, well, when we went ahead and then the building inspector came and said this, I went and asked how to go about doing this to the city and spoke with several people. In the meantime, the condo people came and said there was a new management company, so they wanted to review all the paperwork, and they put everything on hold. And this was also then the pandemic started. So I did not know this, and that's not an excuse, but I did not know there was a timeline to when you comply to an order. And as my condo had put everything on hold, I just put everything on hold, and I was surprised to get an order to comply. And I feel very badly about that, to tell you the truth. I don't like that I did not follow the rules properly. But I also am very upset that I have to pay double the fee under the conditions of what's happening today with the pandemic and the conditions that I was put in. And there was actually no date on this order to comply. So I don't know if that's something I'm just supposed to know. I'm honestly, I profess a little bit of naivety to this situation. But
Well,
I wonder, everyone.
I'll just say it's unfortunate this happened, and but this committee, we are absolutely no part of any of these orders to comply. Okay. We only deal with committee of adjustment, so whatever fees you're talking about, I have no idea. I would just suggest, depending on what decision we make, is that you advise them, and perhaps, you can, well, there is an appeal period, but you'll have to talk to them about it, because it's absolutely nothing to do with this committee.
Okay, it's just that actually several people told me to do this, to ask the committee of adjustments in the hearing.
So maybe I can, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I really don't know what fees that the applicant's referring to right now in terms of waiving. Can you maybe enlighten us?
So the application was submitted after an order to comply was issued for the work that's before the committee, whether partially constructed or full. And in that case, they do pay double the fee. But if you read the refund request policy that is posted online, you can't just make an ad hoc request to the committee for a refund of fees. Because this doesn't qualify for any regular refund of fees, you have to make a special request. It has to be submitted in writing to the Secretary Treasurer. Okay. So the committee cannot deal with a refund request. And I'll be honest, if you're applying in response to an order to comply, I've never seen one refunded for that purpose.
Okay, I was told to bring it up here, and
you can submit a request. I'm just.
It's okay. I understand. So I will do what you say. It was helpful to know what to do next. That's all.
Yeah.
And I understand that this is probably not going to happen, but as kind of an older single woman, like, these are a lot of expenses, like, for one 3-year meter change. It's $10,000. But anyway, enough of my sob story. I'm sorry. I will do what you suggest.
My sympathies on behalf of all the members, but we don't have any further questions regarding the application that's before us, so we're going to take it into committee. Panel members, do you have any comments?
Madam Chairman, now I'm clear on the application, and I thank the applicant for clarifying. I don't have any difficulty with the application at all. As she indicated, it's extremely minor. One would argue it's almost technical, but I'd like to make a motion of approval without any conditions.
All right. And Mr. Reed, did you want to second it? I saw your hand up go too. All right, so motion to approve, moved by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Your application's been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 11, 85 Broadway Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Mr. Foderick, the solicitor, correspondence from Mary Lee, also a solicitor, requesting revisions to the wording of the variances, a site-specific bylaw, and we have a report from planning asking for conditions. And I am not showing any opposition speakers. So do I have the agent on the line?
Hello, Mary. You've been unmuted. Mary Lee. I can't see you speaking. I can't hear you speaking, so I'm going to mute you and go to David Benchamal, who I believe is the owner. Maybe he can speak for us. Hello, David.
Hi there, David Benchamal from. Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So are you speaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is David Benchamal from Fitzrovia Real Estate. We're the developer behind this property. I'm not sure where Mary is. Unfortunately, I guess she's having technical issues, but perhaps I can speak on behalf of this application.
Okay. So I believe the requested change to the wording is reflected, I believe, in what we have before us. And I'm going to check with my panel. I'm not sure we need a presentation. I doubt it. Let me see if they have any questions. Okay, panel members, do any of you have any questions for the Mr. Reed?
Hi, I just want to make sure that are you aware of the planning department's conditions regarding the size, the area of the restaurant and patio, and are you in agreement with those?
Yes, I'm aware of that, and we are in agreement with those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Benchamal, we've read all the material. We're ready to go into committee to make a decision. Is there anything that wasn't in the submissions that you feel you need to add before we go into committee?
No, nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay. Panel members, any comments or a motion or both?
I'm happy to bring forward a motion. I think this is a very minor variance that's being requested, and I think it's actually a very positive thing to insert more active uses in residential buildings that are in close proximity to major streets. So I think it's actually commendable. So I move for approval, subject to the community planning conditions regarding the area in the July 14th report.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Clay. So motion to approve, including the conditions outlined by Mr. Reed, and seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? The application's been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 12, 27 Mechanic Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, side plan, floor plans, and elevations, an encroachment permit submitted by Mr. Singh, the applicant. We have email correspondence from transportation, and they don't seem to have any concerns as per the second email they sent. And we have no speakers listed in opposition. Bless you. Do we?
Thank you. Sorry.
Do we have the agent on the line?
Hello, good morning. My name is Ranbir Singh. I'm the owner at 27 Mechanic Avenue.
Good morning. Panel members, do you need a presentation? No? Do you have any questions for Mr. Singh? Seeing none? Okay. Mr. Singh, we've read all the material. Panel's ready to go into committee to make a decision. Is there anything that wasn't in the submissions that you would like to add?
No, there isn't anything else. Thanks.
No? Okay. Panel members, let's take it into committee then for a decision. So I'll just make note that transportation originally talked about no encroachment into the 2.5 meter setback from the center line, but I believe that was rectified. So in the second email, they seem to be okay with it. So I don't think we need a condition.
Chair, I'm happy to bring a motion. I think this is fairly straightforward, and I don't believe there are any conditions, so I'll just bring forward a motion to approve with no conditions.
Okay. All right, motion to approve the application, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 13, 178 to 180 Queens Quay East. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Mr. Smith, as well as an addendum to it, transportation study prepared by the BA group, a revised map 2 from Allison Tudor, the agent, as well as presentation materials, previous decisions, and a site-specific bylaw affecting the property. And we have email correspondence from community planning, and they don't have any concerns. I'm not showing any opposition speakers. Do I have the agent on the line?
Yes, it's Cynthia McDougall here. Can you hear me?
I can.
That is terrific. My colleague Mary Lee had technical issues just a few months ago, so I was concerned that you would not be able to hear.
Yeah, that seems to be happening to all of us this morning, but I'm not sure we need a presentation. Let me see if the members want to go to, I'm seeing questions, but they don't need a full presentation, so if you're okay with that, I'll go to Mr. Nipfel.
Certainly, thank you.
Ms. McDougall, I don't need a full presentation, but I would appreciate a better understanding of how the non-exclusive parking for visitors is working. I have some concerns that the spaces won't be available for visitors. How will there be spaces available? I appreciate that the spaces are doing double use. They're covering retail and also visitors, but is it not possible that the retail will use all the spaces?
My experience with commercial parking, this is a variance that this committee has approved on numerous occasions, is in the downtown area. It's very usual for the visitor parking, which, by the way, we're not reducing the rate. It's the standard 0.06. The benefit of having it is that the demands for visitors is different than the demands for retail along Queens Quay, and BA Consulting has regularly supported, as well as the Works Department and Transportation Planning, the sharing of the spaces for parking, so that effectively when you're visiting, for example, on a Saturday night, you're not generally doing retail shopping. As well, this isn't destination retail, if I can also say that, along Queens Quay. If you're familiar with the harborfront area, the kinds of retail that will be in the base of the building, which will create the public realm along Queens Quay, will generally speaking serve the neighborhood.
And is the visitor parking in any, how do you get access to the visitor parking? Do you need to be accessed in by somebody, or it's not open all the time, or is it?
Well, there is a parking garage entrance, which there's one entrance, and it's on the east side. And by the way, we've submitted a couple of site plan submissions, and my experience is that the visitor parking has to be at the top level of the garage, and it's separated from the residential property, or the residential parking, because there's a desire to provide for security and safety. So you always have that arm or barrier between the commercial visitor parking and the residential parking for security reasons.
And if I, as a visitor, am showing up at the property, am I stopped at a gate, and does somebody have to access me in? And does this happen for retail? The mechanics of how it actually functions, I don't understand.
All right, I know I have a planner on the line and the architect. My understanding of this proposal is that we're not having that kind of security for the commercial parking component. You just drive in and use it, and that's the basic element. And if I know Adam Feldman's in the background and Allison Tudor, if you have any other information, please advise.
So that's fine then. So that parking is available without restriction?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Clay.
Just so I think it's fairly straightforward in terms of what you're trying to do, is notwithstanding the parking and the bicycle, the width of the bicycle parking. In essence, you're reducing the podium size and redistributing that density into higher towers, specifically the central, or all three?
All three. It ranges from 2 to 3 stories. Actually, I thought the graphic presentation, if you pull it up, what essentially happened is the applicant went to the waterfront design review panel And the building, that's perfect. The building on the left-hand side is called the Empire Development. And you'll notice a step. It's a bit of a more massive, larger development, but you'll notice a step, and there's a 19-meter datum that we're creating along Queens Quay, and that relates to the 20-meter datum along Empire, because you can see that small setback on the corner gray block. So what the Waterfront Design Review Panel said is, please lower your podium heights. And so we're about 5 stories. We're actually a meter lower than Empire, and take that density and redistribute it. So we did 2 things. We added 2 to 3 stories on the towers, which range from 22 to 18, with a 15-story in the middle. We also, the first building that is on your west side nearer the Empire block, we've rotated a bit so it moves from 12 to 18 meters. So we've increased the separation distance. And if you flip, if you're interested, there's a really interesting graphic, which is probably the last, one of the last graphics on the graphic number 10. Would you flip to 10? And if you can see that most, the building that is on the west, because it's been rotated, and you can see the gray mass farther west, that's the Empire project. By rotating it, we've pulled it away and we've enhanced the courtyard in Empire, and that was again a Waterfront Design Review Panel. So this has gone to the Design Review Panel twice. It's a Peter Clues, Adam Feldman Architects Alliance design, and it is actually in responding to those design elements of taking some of the density off the podium and adding 2 to 3 stories on the towers, where in fact, if you look at the context of height in the vicinity, these are very modest, slender kinds of mid-rise to taller buildings.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. I think that confirms in my mind what you're actually trying to achieve. It seems quite reasonable to me.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, Cynthia, I think we're ready to go into committee. We've read all the materials. Is there anything that you want to add that's not covered?
No, just to thank people for the listening to me, and I hope that they will support the variances, because I believe they meet the 4 tests and in fact will result in a better development.
Okay, thank you. All right, panel members, let's take it into committee for a decision.
Oh, sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, I was just going to say I agree with the agent. I think the revised design is quite reasonable. In fact, I would concur that it improves the look of the 3 towers as well, and the fact that Waterfront Toronto and city staff have already been fairly extensively engaged in this. I think it's a reasonable series of variance requests, and I'd be prepared to move a motion to approve. I don't think there are any conditions.
No
straightforward.
Yep.
So I'll just make a motion to approve the application.
Okay, and Carl, you're seconding? All right, motion to approve.
I'm pleased to second. I'd just like to say as well that I think that the variances do result in a better project, and the changes to the podium in particular that were encouraged by Waterfront Toronto, I think are excellent.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Your application's been unanimously approved. Thank you. The next item is item number 14, 263 Lappin Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from engineering. They're asking for conditions. We have support from 812 Lansdowne, opposition correspondence from 265, 259, and 277 Lappin Avenue. Let's see here. Okay. Do you have any, yeah, you know what? Sorry, just give me 1 second here. Okay, for the next 4 items, folks, I'm just gonna have to write some notes because I'm missing some things on my sheets here. Okay, so if I can have the agent please identify himself for the record. Is it Sean Galbraith?
Mr. Galbraith, you've been unmuted. Sean Galbraith? If you can hear me, we can't hear you. I'm going to try and give you a call on the registered number.
I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye.
Hello, Sean? You were right. Hi, Sean. Can you hear us? Doesn't seem like you answered your phone, and we can't hear you through the computer you're connected with. Should we move on to the next item and come back?
Mr. Galbraith, if you're listening, we're not able. Hang on, I think we may have figured it out.
Mr. Galbraith, are you there?
I am.
Awesome.
All right, now I can hear you. Sorry. Can you just identify yourself for the record, and then after that you'll have 5 minutes. I do have 2 opposition speakers listed.
My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, we'll start the clock now. Go ahead.
So what is proposed is to add a 3rd floor to the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling and a laneway suite in the back. The intention of this is to create a new innovative co-housing unit. So there will be 3 units in the main building, and the ground floor will actually be a shared kitchen and a shared living space between those units. But each of those units will be self-contained with kitchen and washroom each. And frankly, that was because otherwise it would have triggered the rooming house bylaw, and this would be required to be licensed, and it would be a whole other thing. So kitchens were added, and it became a triplex with a shared common space in between. And the intent is that this will be for either multi-generational housing or a group of friends who can't afford to buy a place normally, but they can afford to live together in a more of a group setting, let's say. Each of the 3 units in the main house are 2 bedrooms each, and it is a 1-bedroom laneway suite in the back. The footprint of the existing house is being maintained. Just a partial 3rd floor is being added, and the 3rd floor is stepped back from the rear to create a terrace and to minimize any shadowing. There will be a new light well that is added on the east side to provide light into the basement unit, which will also have its own front terrace and a walkout at the front. Even though these are 3 units, it's under the zoning bylaw, it's deemed to be they're deemed to be secondary suites, but effectively they're triplexes. While the variance for soft landscaping indicates 0% in the front yard, that's already an existing condition, excuse me, and The application is actually going to increase the front yard landscaping, or the front of lot line landscaping, from 0% to 23%, which will be an improvement to the existing condition. No variances are actually required for the laneway suite itself. I hope that helps, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think we'll hold the questions panel members have till after we hear from the opposition. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay. All right, so I do have the speakers on the line for this one. Lilawati? Hi.
Lilawati, you've been unmuted.
Hello?
Help, and I'm happy to.
I can't hear you very well. Can you speak up, and if you have any devices going in the background, can you please turn them off? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, is this Mr. Harital or Harilal?
Harilal? Yes, but the owner, she's not here right now. She was waiting, and then she had to step out emergency.
Okay, so Lilawati is not there?
But she, opposite that, she don't want no underpinning and anything. She don't agree with what's going on.
Okay, so
Sir, what is your name?
What is your name, yeah?
Brian Bissoon.
Brian, and how do you spell your last name?
B-I.
B-I.
Double S.
2 S's, yeah?
And 2 O's.
2 O's.
N.
N. Brian Bissoon. Okay, so
that's right.
So why does Lilawati oppose this then? She doesn't specifically?
Yeah, because it's an old house and she don't want any interference with it because they have to do underpinning and thing, and she already said no.
Okay, so she's concerned about construction issues?
Yeah.
Okay. Just for your information, this committee does not deal with construction issues. We only deal with the variances that are being requested to create the structure itself.
Even the front of the building will be more in front, and then the back, I don't know what they will do there, but she totally objected it because she already saying no to it already.
Okay, so she basically is objecting to all the variances then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Panel members, do you have questions of the speaker? Seeing none, is it Wong? Mr. Wong,
Hi,
are you?
everyone.
Hi, can you just state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes to state your concerns.
Fantastic. So, hi, Madam Chair and other distinguished members of the council. My name is Matthew Wong, and I do not live at this residence, but I am the son of So Len Tang, who is the resident owner of 261 Lappin, which is adjacent to 263 Lappin Avenue. Speaking on behalf of her, she is against the proposal for a couple of reasons. Primarily, the first point is that the west-facing privacy screen provides privacy for the west end of buildings, but does not provide it for the east. We are east of this proposed variance changes, and that leads to the laneway suite having the ability to see into my mother's kitchen as well as the backyard lot. Additionally, they would just be able to peer over the balcony and just see us from the 3rd floor of the primary lot in the front. Secondly, as mentioned from the other objector, the lot of land is too small for this in our opinion, but that is not neither here nor there. The lot of land is very narrow, and fire escape seems to be a concern, as well as the front lot, the porch is asked to be extended up into the sidewalk. That would provide an obstruction of view towards our side, as well as our neighbors over at 259 Lapin Avenue who weren't able to attend today. Moving forward, we are also concerned about the removal of parking. Currently at 263, there is a front parking spot as well as a rear parking spot that the previous owner had. And with the new proposals, you would lose the parking spot in an area that has very little parking, frankly. It's a struggle to find parking here, and hence that's why everyone has a garage for the family housing that's here. Proposing that this be a rental property for 3 units plus 1 in the laneway. If they all had cars, that would just add further congestion to the neighborhood area. And then on top of that, I had heard from other objectors from other properties during this hearing that the valuation of property came into a reasonable point, which I'd like to add here as well. Having a rental property such as that next to a house does not necessarily improve anything at all, frankly speaking. The perception would be that you would have noise complaints and other kind of rowdy neighbors, and that only is exacerbated by having more than a single family as a neighbor, and you would never be able to hold any of them accountable anyway. So sorry?
I didn't,
that would primarily be it.
Okay, no, I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. And lastly, we have a written petition from 11 other people in the M6H vicinity, as well as our neighbors who have signed it. Unfortunately, I was not able to submit it on behalf of my mom on time for Wednesday, July 14th. So I understand that I cannot reference that material in this meeting, but I'd like it to be verbally known that it is not just myself and the other objector who just spoke before me. There are 11 other people who are objecting to the variances.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, do you have any questions of the speaker? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Galbraith, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you please speak to the issues that were raised?
So I think the first issue was regards to the laneway suite and privacy. The laneway suite is permitted as of right. It's permitted to have windows. In consideration of the bylaw, the city took that into account already and determined that units in laneway suites are allowed to look towards the main unit. In a densely populated, dense urban fabric, privacy is not an absolute consideration. There was a comment that the lot was too small to accommodate the use. The use is a permitted use in the zoning bylaw, and it doesn't have, there's no variance for the size of the lot. I think the property can easily accommodate it. There was a comment about the porch extending to the sidewalk. I think that's a misunderstanding. The porch is an existing porch. It's just being rebuilt in its existing size. It's not going to extend to the sidewalk. The property line doesn't extend to the sidewalk, and so that creates the variance creates a misunderstanding, I think, as to the nature of that. The front yard parking space that currently exists is being retained. And we're adding soft landscaping on either side of it. There was some comments about more of an anti-renter kind of bias. Frankly, I'm not going to address those. I think the project is entirely appropriate for the property. We do have a couple concerns with the engineering comments, though. I can speak to that if you wish.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So engineering has asked for an enclosed garbage bins structure on the property. There's no room to put such a structure because of the front entrance to the basement unit. Bins currently are stored next to the parking space, and that's the common condition up and down this street where the houses are pretty close to the front lot line. The intent is that, as this is going to be one sort of housekeeping unit, notwithstanding that it's 3 3 units, the intent is not to have, 15 garbage bins out front or something like that. The engineering's second comment about a 1 meter path, I'm not even clear what that one means, if that's from the laneway suite to the front or from the front of the house to the street. That condition can easily be met because of the driveway. It's more the enclosed or the garbage bin refuse area on private property. That I'm not sure that we can actually provide. There's just simply no space for it.
Okay.
I don't know, the comments seem to be in relation to the laneway suite. And we obviously can't provide a 1 meter pathway to the front from the laneway suite because it's an existing building that's lot line to lot line.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're not changing the footprint itself of the building.
Okay. I'm going to see if the panel members have any questions. Mr. Niffel.
At the present time, there are 3 dwelling units within the existing building, or is that correct?
No, it's a single.
Okay, so that you're going to have 3 dwelling units within it. That's the proposal, right? So at the present time, did I understand you to say that the garbage is currently stored beside the parking space, which means that it's stored on the public right of way? Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's the condition up and down the street.
Except that you're going to increase the density of the users by 3. So you're going to have 3 times as much garbage on the public boulevard as you currently do.
Well, the intent is not to have 3 times the number of garbage bins. To keep the same number of bins, so that it isn't going to have a significant number of bins, sort of just lining the front yard.
Okay, and the other question was actually a question I wanted to ask of one of the people that was opposed, but I lost contact with the WebEx, and maybe you understood it. I understood, I think it's Mr. Chan, to indicate that there is screening provided to the property owners to the east, or to the west, but not to his mother's property. And I wasn't clear on what that screening was or or what that was in relationship. Did that comment ring with you at all? Do you know what the concern there was?
Yeah, so if drawing A2.2 could be brought up, you can see the horizontal striped area. That is an architectural privacy screen that is built into the house design that runs all 3 floors. Mm-hmm. That is on the west side. There isn't a privacy screen on the east side. The one is already provided for on the west side.
Yes. Okay, so that's what he was referring to, right? I wasn't sure whether it was that element or whether it was the screening on the port. I didn't understand the point. So that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I note that his mother has a similar rooftop deck on the 3rd floor, and there are no privacy screens on her property.
Mr. Clay, did you have?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gerard. Mr. Galbraith, I noticed that the FSI request increase appears to be double. I'm assuming that the current structure well exceeds the 0.6. Did you have any sense of what the existing FSI is?
Yeah. Sorry,
I mean,
give me a sec here.
Yeah.
The existing FSI, I've just got my calculator here, a sec, is just shy of 0.9.
Right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
Densities higher than this have been approved in the area for sure.
Yeah, I looked around the neighborhood and it does look like there are some fairly large dwellings there.
Mm-hmm. Including right next door.
Yes, indeed.
Are there any other questions, panel members? Okay, we're ready to take it into committee for a decision then. Any comments?
I'll start. I actually, in terms of the general purpose of the application, I'm quite supportive. I think, you know, innovative solutions to communal living, such as this, where you have a common area for 3 units, I think is a really interesting concept. I've seen it in other areas, and I think it works very well. It's a very difficult concept to get through, particularly outside of Toronto, through a lot of local planning restrictions, but I think it's the kind of innovative proposal for increasing density in existing neighborhoods that we should be considering. I did note that there was no variances for laneway suites, which we always like. I am a little bit concerned, as Carl pointed out, on the garbage issue. You know, city staff have suggested that there should be some sort of way to store refuse in a way that doesn't sort of, I think, affect the streetscape and the neighborhood and the facade. I wonder about that. Maybe that's something, if we all think this is a supportable application, I wonder if that's something we can turn our minds to. I am sympathetic to the city's concerns about, and Carl points out that I think there will be more garbage generated by a laneway suite and 3 units, you know, on this property. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's worthwhile us having a discussion about it.
I'd agree with Larry's comments. I think it's I think this is a thoughtful design and it works well on the site, and do commend the applicant for designing the laneway suite with no variances being requested. And yeah, I think this shared living arrangement is interesting and commendable as well. I get your, both of Larry and Carl's point about the garbage. I'm just not sure how that can actually be accommodated on the property. I would assume, and maybe we can ask the applicant if there's a way that they could do it. We can't really allow them or encourage them to make a more formalized arrangement on public property, but I think there might be some kind of solution there with a light touch. But I agree, Larry, I support this application.
Carl?
I might as well weigh in as well. I also like the innovative approach to this, to intensification and support that. I'd be very concerned with ignoring the development engineering's concern about garbage. I think it potentially could be a real big problem. There are areas of the city where there is garbage in front of the dwelling because it's not possible to get it behind or within the dwelling. And to be quite frank, garbage bins dominate the street, and it's really a nuisance. I think the problem is that the development engineering condition is very specific, and I can appreciate that there are problems accommodating the specific recommendation. I'm wondering if we could substitute a condition that adequate garbage storage is to be provided in a manner satisfactory to the development engineering department, which gives some flexibility following the meeting for the development engineering and the designers to see if they can come up with some kind of an alternative solution. Because at the present time, we've got 2 alternatives. 1, it's on the public boulevard, it's a lot of garbage cans. And 2, it's in the building, but that's going to be hard, if not impossible, to accommodate. And I agree with Larry. There may in fact be an alternative if one approaches it creatively. We don't know what it is right now. I'd like to leave the option open to accept a creative alternative, and I'm wondering if the approach is to have garbage storage to the satisfaction of the Development Engineering Department. Perhaps the Deputy Secretary Treasurer would have a comment on that.
I think the wording that you've suggested would work. It would then still be ultimately up to engineering and construction services to give the final sign off, so they will need to satisfy them. Just when making your motion, can you be clear which other conditions from the engineering and construction services report you would be including? Because there are other ones that relate to fire services, street naming of the lane, municipal numbering, etc.
Can we just approve the report and remove condition A and B and replacing it with what Carl just suggested?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, panel members. Anybody want to make a motion or any other comments?
Larry, you were making a motion, were you not?
I'm happy to, yeah, sure. I'm happy to move a motion on this one. Just might need a little bit of assistance in terms of the wording or as we just discussed, but I will move that we approve this application subject to, maybe I can just.
Subject to engineering conditions.
Engineering conditions, I'm just looking what number.
Removing A and B, 1A and B.
Removing A and B, keeping C, and also conditions regarding, hang on, they're not numbered.
I think it's basically keeping everything else and then, but only removing condition 1A and B.
But we need to substitute that with Carl's language, right?
Right, and then substitute it with that adequate garbage storage be provided to the satisfaction of engineering.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me. Guys, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then there's our motion.
Okay, who's seconding it? Peter. Okay, so the motion with the engineering report removing the condition 1A and B and replacing that with adequate garbage storage be provided to the satisfaction of engineering, that this be approved, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? And the application's been approved. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item is 324 Old Weston Road, item number 15. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from Daniel Hall, the agent, as well as the owner, Mr. Khan. Previous decisions affecting the property. We have an arborist report prepared by Wendy Lee. We have email correspondence from engineering, and there are no conditions, they're okay. We have a report from planning, and they are asking for conditions, basically that the proposed laneway suite be built substantially in accordance with the site plans and elevations received by the committee. We have a 3-signature petition in support from the owners of 310, 322, and 326 Old Weston, and we don't have any speakers listed. Is the agent on the line?
Yes, I am. It's Daniel Hall from the Architect Builders Collaborative. Can you hear me clearly?
I can. I don't think we need a presentation, but no, my members say no. They may have questions, not sure. Any questions? No questions. All right. So we've read all the materials. We're ready to go into committee. Is there anything that's not part of the submissions that you want to add before we go into committee?
No, I think we've submitted a cover letter that outlines why we feel these variances are minor and appropriate given the rather quirky site conditions.
Yeah.
And the, you know, the shape of the site really is what's driving it. And I know that we did discuss with planning, and we have no issue at all with their request that we tie this plan to the plans. We're very happy to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. And yes, we have your covering letter from yourself and the owner. Okay, panel members, let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Nipple.
Madam Chairman, this is a good solution on an odd-shaped parcel of land, as the applicant had indicated. I have no difficulty with it. I don't think it poses any difficulty for the community, and I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the planning condition which ties the approval to plans and the development engineering condition about municipal numbering. I have a question though. Do we normally have standard development engineering conditions for all laneway suites that are more extensive than the numbering request here? Do we need to include those conditions as well?
Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I don't see a report, but to Carl's question.
They may have addressed any issues already by whatever notations they have on their plans. So
okay, so we're okay going with just the municipal numbering, then that's fine. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion to approve, including the conditions in the planning report, moved by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Your application's been unanimously approved. Thank you. Item number 16.
Madam Chair, we're gonna need 5 minutes just to switch to YouTube session.
Already? Okay, we gotta take 5 again. They have to switch the extension here.
YouTube session.
Or the YouTube session, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For those watching via YouTube, it's going to end in a moment, and we're going to start a new YouTube session. It'll be called the same thing, only afternoon part 1 or PM part 1.
You